Let's go for number 6, staircase. Consider a staircase of size n is equal to 4. So we have a size that is 4, and what we're getting as an output is whatever this is, and it looks like a staircase, right? So what we actually have is we have 3 spaces here, we have 2 spaces here, we have 1 here, and we have 0 spaces here. And we have these symbols, pound symbols, that represent the stairs. Observe that its base and height are both equal to n. So base is this right here, and we have 4 elements, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, and height is also 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the image is drawn using pound symbols and spaces. So like I said, we have 3 spaces here, 2 here, and 1 here. The last line is not preceded by any spaces. So last one isn't going to have any spaces at all. Write a program that prints a staircase of size n. So here we want to print a result. We're not going to return anything. Function description: complete the staircase function in the editor below. It should print a staircase as described above. So we want a 4x4 staircase. The last, I guess you can call it element or last line that we want to print is be composed of only pound signs. We're not going to have any spaces in it, and it's going to have these parameters: n, a number, and this is going to represent the base and height of our stairs. Input format: a single integer n denoting the size of the staircase. So it's a little bit repetitive direction. Output format: print a staircase of size n using pound symbols and spaces. The last line should have 0 spaces in it. So last line isn't going to have any spaces. It's going to be pound signs only. Now let's code our solution. So we have our function staircase, which takes in a parameter n, and this is going to be an integer number. So what we want to do is we want to basically print this out, right? And as you can see, the first one is going to have 5 spaces. Oh yeah, before that, remember that this is 6 by 6. So we have 6 elements here, which is our base. We have a height of 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we want to print, and in order for us to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to use a for loop, and for let I is equal to 1, and I'll tell you guys why we're starting at index of 1. I is going to be less than or equal to n, and we want to increment by 1 each time we loop. So we want to print 5 spaces and 1 pound sign in our first iteration. So let's make our console log, and first one is going to be a space. And how many spaces do we want? We want 5 spaces in the first one, right? And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by using a function called repeat, and this function just repeats something a number of times, and we want it to be 5, right? And we're given a number integer n, which is 6, and in the first print statement we want 5 spaces and 1 pound sign. So the way we're going to do that is, instead of and we have to give a formula here so that the number of spaces decreases while the number of pound sign increases. So we know that our n is 6, right? And that's given here. But now we want only 5 prints of blank space. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract it by I. So in the first loop, n is going to be always going to be 6, but I is going to be what? Is going to be 1, right? So 6 minus 1 is going to give us 5, which is going to result in 5 empty spaces. And now we want to concatenate that with a pound sign, a pound. And how many times do we want this to repeat? We're gonna repeat I times. So in the first round or first loop, we're going to have 5 spaces, and second print, we're going to have 1 pound sign. And the second one, when I is equal to 2, this is going to evaluate to 4. So we're going to have 4 spaces and 2 pound signs. And if you look at the print here, we get our stairs. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And if we print it like this, we can't see the spaces, right? So just for testing, you can just replace it with something else. So we can see that our first print statement, we have how many stars? Okay, I don't know why. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars, and as you can see, it's decreasing. But let's change that back to space, and yeah, here we go. That's our solution. We have our stairs here. If you guys find this helpful, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Thanks. Okay, let's go over our code just to get a better understanding. So make our function n is an integer, in which this case is 6. So we're looping starting at index I, and we're looping until I is going to equal to n, and we increase our I by 1. And we just have our simple console log statement here. So let's obviously we want to print our solution, and we have blank space, which is repeated n minus I times. So for our first iteration, we're going to have our n is equal to 6 and I is going to equal to 1. So our blank space is going to be repeated 5 times, whereas our pound sign is repeated once because it has an index of I, and our I is 1 right now. And let's say that our I is equal to 2. Our blank space is going to repeat 6 minus 2 times, which evaluates to 4, and this is 6 minus 1, which evaluates to 5. And our pound sign is repeated I, which is in this case 2. And this is going to happen until I is equal to n. So that means I is going to equal to 6, because you want a total of 6 elements. This is going to repeat, and just the number of empty space is going to decrease. The number of pound sign is going to increase, and that's how we get our stairs, which has a size of 6 by 6. Let's go over one more solution using different solution or different method actually, but our for loop is actually going to loop the same. So let I is equal to 1, I is going to be less than or equal to n, and we increment by 1. So when we console log our solution, it's going to look a little bit more different. We're going to print pound that repeat I, and we know this far. We went over this in our previous solution, but what's wrong with this solution is that it's going from right to left, but we want that stairs to be left to right, right? So we need blank spaces before this. We want our space that's to the right of the stairs to be on the left side. So how we're going to do that is we're going to use a method called pad start. And what this basically does is basically adds empty spaces to the string that we have, in which this case is pound. So pad start basically kind of sets the length of our string, in which this case is 6. And if our other string is short of that length, it's going to replace that with empty spaces. So we have length of 6. In our first iteration, we're going to have pound string that has a length of 1, right? But our whole string is going to be length of 6. So it pads, padding means adding empty spaces, and it adds those empty spaces in the beginning of the string. So we're going to have 5 spaces, and we have 1 pound sign. That's our first console log in the for loop. And as our number of pound sign increases, that's going to get replaced at the end, starting at the end of the string. So in the first iteration, we have 5 paddings or 5 empty spaces, and we have 1 pound sign, and our empty spaces is going to decrease by 1, and our pound sign is going to be increasing by 1. And as you can see, we get our stairs that we want. So pad start basically again adds empty spaces to the current string, and whatever the other string that we have, that's concatenated at the end of the string.